there's different shades of green on the greenwashing scale from the oil and fossil fuel companies who are it seems quite purposefully only showing the renewable bits of their business and never kind of using the rest in their communications, to businesses who are really trying to do the right thing and just maybe communicating in a slightly over enthusiastic way, but there is clear guidance now from the ASA on what is acceptable, and making sure that whatever kind of messages are getting out there are really specific about, well, you can't just use terms like greener or more sustainable now. You have to really kind of say what you're doing. But there's an art to that is not just talking in really boring technical language, but communicating that in a way that inspires hope and inspires that your audience is going to feel like they're part of your story, of your brand story, of moving in the right direction, and that it feels exciting and that's something your customers want to be part of, whilst being specific enough to get it right, rather than the wishy-washy language that is getting a lot of companies into trouble.
Yeah, you're right, but that's incredibly difficult, isn't it? Because you've got to talk about something technically accurately, wholly accessibly, using words that people will understand, and yet you can't use the fluffy words that people have got used to, like eco-friendly, because they're too fluffy, while being realistic about the challenges, while engendering a sense of hope. I mean, it's a kind of communication kind of, one of the biggest challenges of our times. Are really, really hard to disentangle. And I suppose that's where our friends from Common Cause were very useful in their advice, is that they said, that there are some sort of safe places that you can kind of locate your comms within. For example, community action. If you talk about what you're doing within the community and how you're helping a community, it's meaningful for people, isn't it? They understand that that's good, and they understand that that's of value, and it is environmental. But maybe you don't necessarily have to kind of badge it with those words, because it's clearly of benefit to people and to planet, but sort of sidesteps perhaps the need to make kind of claims about your environmental record on a broader level, which is hard for any big company when we know that their supply chains are so riddled with complexity. I was reading about what Iceland have done. I think that's a great example, because they did some genuine, through COVID and coming out of COVID, with their kind of micro loans and their, Tuesday over 60 days and things like that. They genuinely took steps to benefit their community. And that, essentially that you and I would call that environmental action, because it was helping people to consume in a way that they need to and that they want to.
And I think we also saw some research from Ipsos Mori that was saying actually the public don't necessarily see environmental and social as separate and
Yeah,
different, and it
right.
needs to feel aligned and joined up. So if you're doing something fantastically environmentally, let's say you're reducing your carbon footprint in some way, but actually treating your staff terribly, that comes across really badly. It doesn't come. You are perceived in the eyes of customers in a much less positive way. It needs to feel joined up. It needs to feel like taking care of people and taking care of the planet come together in joined up ways of businesses trying to make the world a better place, and communicating it like that. Which is why we come from a place at Gap where we do talk about it doesn't have to be overtly and obviously environmental for it to be having a positive impact. It can be, talking about, like you say, benefits to communities, are going to be are positive things that businesses can do and will be received really, really well.
I mean, ultimately, it's all down to authenticity, isn't it? Which is
Yeah.
unfortunately a terribly overused word. But in this instance, there isn't really a better concept, because actually, if you talk about genuine things you are doing to genuinely help people that come from the core of your brand and are spoken in a way that your brand speaks and feels true to them, you know, that cuts through the mistrust and the confusion and the tech and all of the kind of, you know, chaos that we're talking about, and is just a sort of honest reflection of who and what you're doing. And I suppose, you know, if we had any advice to agencies and communicators trying to navigate this difficult space, is just keep bringing it back to the kind of authentic heart of your brand and strip away perhaps some of the stuff that you're trying to pile on to make it feel like this kind of attractive green brand. Actually just go back to your own roots and your own authentic connections with people and communities, and locate it there.
Yeah, absolutely. Being authentic, yeah, is also kind of, yeah, keeping it simple, and that's all part of normalizing it. So
Mm,
the more that brands are speaking in their own authentic normal brand voice, not trying to suddenly become something different, but saying we're still X brand and this is what we do and this is what we do well, and we're on our journey to becoming a more sustainable business, as we all are. It helps to really kind of normalize the conversation in society as well, and be a kind of catalyst for that real cultural change, because it feels so normal. I mean, the example we've used so many times is the Greg's vegan sausage roll. Of, like, you know, they're still making a great sausage roll. You know? They're just taking that step to do it in a to provide a vegan one, and communicating it still very much in their Greg's
mm-hmm,
style and branding. They haven't tried to become this holier than thou worthy, you know, quite boring communicator. They've done it in a really fun way. So I
mm.
think that's an excellent example of where it's been done really, really well and from an authentic place.